Welcome to my show, which is called Conversations with Teenath. And in Conversations with Teenath, in association with freebirds.co, we try to get you exceptional human beings from this earth, and especially some of my best friends, because these friends of mine are doing so well. They have chronicled such lovely stories for themselves. And this particular friend of mine is my bestie from school. We studied from nursery together. And I'm so bloody damn proud about her. Now, I've used the word bloody. I know she's going to say, oh, why did you use the word bloody? But I still use it. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that she's here. And she's doing fantastic. Guess who she is? She's Prarthana Borah. And she is the India Director of Clean Air Asia. She has gone places. She has not stopped for a single second in her life. She's just worked. And she is the first girl of the class. I don't know who's going to mind about this, but she's the first girl of the class. And I've always been so proud about her. And Prarthana, welcome to my show.
Hey.
Hey. Are you okay?
Can you? I'm okay.
Yeah.
This is one of those days when, when you don't want disaster to strike, and then my internet seems to be, going fluctuating. So I'm like, so bad, not today, please, not today. Don't do it today. Like, I'm with my celebrity friend. This is not the right day. I mean, I hardly get to do fun stuff, and then this is what happens, and the internet starts fluctuating and my heart goes tap, tap, So anyway,
You have not changed one bit from the time I knew you in nursery class in Loreto till now. You've just been the same, and you've just been talking the same, and you have reached such a beautiful platform. You are the India Director of Clean Air Asia, but you're still that humble, down-to-earth, fun person. Seriously, I just love you for that. I simply love you. And this is, I've almost got tears in my eyes because I'm seeing you after so long. I'm talking with you after so long, and you have been an exceptional friend. I remember those days in Shillong, Prarthana. I have to be a little nostalgic. I know this is going to be a little serious after we start discussing things. But then, those times that we had in Shillong were just too good. I just want to go back sometimes. And especially having those lovely Lucy and Connie Aloo Dom of you that your mom cooked, that was heaven. That was too good. And every time you called me for your birthday, and all the girls used to gather there, used to treat us to some sumptuous food that your mom used to cook. And I have so many beautiful memories with you. Wonderful memories I have. And you were always the first girl. I always remember whenever the prize distribution used to come on, and I used to always know Prarthana's name would be called first. And she would come back with a stack of certificates because it would either be proficiency for education or for studies and all kinds of things. I still remember that. And from nursery to class 10, your academic graph has been consistent. And my mother always used to tell me one thing, Prarthana is na hobo nwara. Can't you be like Prarthana? And I used to say, Mom, she's a wizard. She's full of knowledge. I'm not like that. I'm just an average person. She's wonderful. And here she is.
Thank you so much. I don't know, actually, if I agree with you on that, because I don't think I'm a super achiever, and I keep telling my kids, that I don't think marks ever tell you anything, or coming first or second is not what is important. And what is important is finding what you want to do in life. And I think once you find that, and you're really passionate about whatever you are doing, and this is something that I tell youngsters all the time, that it's very important to actually do what you love, so that it doesn't become a job for you. It becomes a passion, and it's like a way of life. And I think the reason why I have been able to do whatever I am doing at the moment, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm doing exception. I think there are lots of people, and I think youngsters today, by the time they're 30, they're like CEOs. So I think, considering that we were from a generation where we had to, for us, it was really slow. I mean, it was a bottom-up approach where you started on the ground and then you moved your way to the top. Well, it's been quite a journey. And I think what I really, I mean, in spite of all the things that you've said about me, and okay, maybe I was committed. Yeah, I know I was very, very studious. I think I was like very study oriented, and I couldn't think beyond studies. I mean, I was never. I keep thinking back. I would have loved to play a musical instrument like some of our friends, or I would have
You
loved to.
used to play. I
Well,
remember you used to play the
well,
sitar.
no, no,
Wait,
but
let me do this. People, whoever is listening, I must tell you that she plays the sitar exceptionally well. One
oh
day
God.
I was at her home. My mom was visiting. Both of us were visiting her home, and she was playing the sitar. And my mom heard it late, and she was asking me, "Was that on a radio or something?" Because we were more used to radios. And I said, "No, that was Prarthana playing." And she said, "Oh my God, that was like exceptionally beautiful." Yeah, so sorry,
Okay,
I
I had no,
interrupted.
I had forgotten I used to play the sitar. So thanks for reminding me. But anyways, what I was trying to say is that yeah, it's been a good journey. I love my work. I think that's what shows. And if you ask me, what is it that got you where you are, I would say that it's because I love my work, and I would never choose any other career than what I'm doing now. And I think that is what probably is the deciding factor. And I mean, whether it's, I mean, if whether it's finance, or power, or to do do something, be in another country, I think I would always I opt for what I've done, and it's a career of choice. I mean, I call it a career of choice, and that's probably why I'm good at what I'm doing. So yeah. So but it's wonderful that you remember I played the sitar, which I discarded when I left the Northeast because I couldn't carry it with me, and then also because I, I mean, it went out of fashion, of course, playing the sitar.
My goodness, you
So,
used to play
so
exceptionally well. You know,
yes.
whenever I see someone playing the sitar, I remember you somehow. You know, and you used to be very beautiful. You used to be fluid on the sitar. It used to be really good. And I used to be awestruck because I was always awestruck by your knowledge and your intelligence and the way you carried things off. So for me to see you again playing the sitar, I was always in awe of you. So it was great. So Prarthana, you have we studied together in class 10, and then we studied arts in St. Mary's College. I'm letting out a lot of secrets. People are going to
No,
now.
it's not a secret. It's in your CV.
It's in LinkedIn anyway. So guys, I'm not telling the secret. So then after that, you went on to do your MA in economics as well. So what did you do after that? How did you get into environment? Because see, whenever I looked at you, whenever I saw you back in school, I always thought you would be now you're a leader as well. I'm not saying you're not a leader, but I always thought, you would be a political leader or something like that, because I used to see stacks of books where you had, by the time you were in class 6 or 7, you had already read the life history, autobiography, I'm sorry, the life history of Mahatma Gandhi and a lot of other people. I could see those books in your study room, and I used to always think, I will never read these books ever. And so you had already read them. I am reading them now, but I always thought. And so, what caught your attention? Environment. That's a lovely subject that you were studying.
So I don't know if I don't think we ever spoke so much when we were doing our
Yeah.
masters, but one of the emerging areas of economics at that time, this was the 90s we're talking about, was environmental economics. And I really wanted to study environmental economics. Now, well, like you said, I used to read a lot. So I found this particular course that was very interesting because it talked about valuing the environment. And I was always interested in economics, but the inclination towards environment was actually part of the economics aspect. And but the problem was, we grew up in Shillong, and it didn't have the best courses, or you didn't have enough choices. So obviously, I never got a chance to study environmental economics, and instead I studied development economics, and which is something probably that has become more a trend in the last few years. So once I finished my economics course, I was looking for something to do on environment. But again, it wasn't really a career at that time. You know, there were hardly any courses as far as the country was concerned. So only way that you could study environment was basically, you know, through, I mean, either by going abroad or, you know, going to an international university. So unfortunately, we were not as privileged as, you know, today's generation was. Going abroad was like, you know, something you had to really dream of or be born with a golden spoon in, or a silver spoon. So I think, I was basically exploring ways to do it. And I was doing my teaching degree, and one of my project, my end of the year project, was actually on the need for environmental education in the schools in Shillong, and that was actually my first intense exercise in terms of understanding the environment. And while I was doing that, doing my teaching degree, I saw one day I saw in the corner of the Assam Tribune a small ad which talked about, you know, Commonwealth International Training on Environmental Education. And it talked about the competitive process. So the competitive process was that you were to send an essay on, you know, on basically environmental development and, you know, connecting the two. So I don't exactly remember the topic, but it had something to do with environmental development. And it was an international program run by the Commonwealth. And it was basically on environmental education. It was a one-year program. It was a scholarship program and 15 students were selected from all over the country, and they had to be from a different discipline, and they had to be a first-class master. So I had all that criteria and I applied. And then we had to do an interview. And luckily for me, you know, in those days, it was very difficult even to take an interview because you lived in the back of beyond in Shillong. So meaning to go for an interview to Delhi, you would have to convince your parents that you're going for the right course. You had to, you know, you had to basically, you know, literally be on your knees in terms of, you know, why you should be going for that course, because they would say that what's bad in Shillong and you should be studying in Shillong, and there's no need to go and study some funny subject in Shillong. The only reason you went outside to study was to do a medical or an engineering degree. Otherwise, the rest of the courses were like, no, you can do it, like, you know, you can do it sitting here. So, but luckily for me, you know, this interview said they had a center in Guwahati, and the reason they had it was that they had never got anyone from the Northeast, like no one from the Northeast had ever been selected for the program. So they were really wanting somebody from the Northeast. And it was almost the 10th year of the program, and they'd never had anybody from the Northeast. So they particularly had a center in Guwahati. And it was easy, of course, to go to Guwahati, you know that. So I went and took my interview, and I made it. And it was a fully sponsored program for 1 year. And it was housed at the Center for Environment Education, which was my alma mater. And I moved to Ahmedabad, you know, for a year. And the course was fantastic. It was a completely ground level course where you learned about wetlands. You lived in, you know, you had to spend time about 10 days in the forest studying the forest ecosystem, and then we went to the sea to study the corals. So it was a completely practical course. It was if I look back, it was the changing, you know, what you call something that changed my career completely, because while my love and my theoretical knowledge on environment was there, but the practical experience actually came from this international training program. And then once I completed the training program, I immediately got placed as a nature educator in an organization in Gujarat. So I started my career as a conservation educator, basically, you know, taking people on, taking young children on, you know, nature camps, and, you know, teaching them about conservation, teaching them about, you know, fun stuff. Yeah, it was really great. And so that's how it started. And then, you know, I moved on to do a lot of other things. So the journey has been that I worked a lot in conservation, and basically in nature conservation, wildlife, and then I moved to the sustainability issues of livelihood and looking at community mobilization, livelihood, and things like that. And then I got very interested. All along, I was very interested in the whole issue of education, communication for environment. So basically, the common thread throughout my career, although I've been on different theoretical tracks, has been the whole issue of education communication. I worked in design and sustainability, looking at, sustainability and issues of design. Then, of course, I went into more theoretical areas like biodiversity conservation, climate change, and for the last 5 years now on air pollution, I've been working on air pollution. So that's been my journey on environment. And yeah, I mean, mostly about talking to people about environment, communicating environment, and understanding the whole interconnectedness as far as the environmental issues is concerned. So that's how my journey has been, so on. So and typically it has been working with children, working with rural communities, and then moving to a basically an Indian national kind of an approach. And then finally, now I work in an international organization. So basically looking at how we can bring the international perspective and, kind of adapt it in the Indian context, and talk about air pollution issues, as a part of a scientific organization that is working to address air pollution in over 1,000 cities in Asia.
Wow, wow. I mean, that's a lot of things. Yeah. You know what I want to do right now? I want to go back. I want to go back to school. I
Yeah.
want you to mentor me. I want you to counsel me, and I want to actually start my life again. I want to just start my life
No,
from
I
the
think
start.
you've done great for yourself. I was so excited to be on your show. I mean, come on.
So,
I was like, I'm going to be on a celebrity show today.
Fine. This is wonderful. You know, you worked in the Center for Environment Education. That's from 2006 to 2016. And you have quite a, when I was reading your profile, Prarthana, it needs, I think it'll need, for me at least, I will need a week to get over the fact that you've done so many things. If you see my profile is very simple. If it's just got some cultural things and all smatterings of anchoring and stuff like that. But yours is such a beautiful profile. You know, you have worked non-stop. Now, I just simply like this, that you were in Cognito Advertising from 1996 to 98, then in National Institute of Design from 2002 to 2006, and then you were in the Center for Environmental Education 2006 to 2016, till you got onto this to Clean Air
Clean
Asia.
Asia, yeah.
So, yeah. So I would like to know, what were you doing in Cognito Advertising, you know, when you started off? It would be interesting. Why I'm asking you this is because there are a lot of people watching you, and then they're so inspired by what you've been saying. I'm sure they're going to, kind of pick up anecdotes of how they would like to start. So what were you doing in this place, Cognito Advertising?
So when I studied environment, it was very boring, like in the sense that it was not really the kind of career that you visualize it today. I mean, today environment is the hot career, and everyone's talking environment, right? So when we studied environment, I think our if you look at it, it was not really a career. It could have been a hobby for some people who just like to be in the woods, but I don't think it was ever looked at as a career. As far as I was concerned, I think I was very interested in communicating environment, making it more interesting, talking about it as a lifestyle issue, because I think ultimately environmental choices are lifestyle choices, right? What kind of car you use, what kind of products you use. I think everything is related to your choice, and which is why I started my career, as I told you, in conservation education, taking kids out. But then what I was very, very interested was learning about communications, and I used to write pretty well, actually, so I think one of my favorite subjects was English, and even in school. And I think because we went to Loreto, I think all of us learned to write well, which was something that I think we should all credit the institution that actually where we grew up. But basically I spent two years in advertising just because I wanted to understand social communication, and which would actually give you some kind of picture in terms of understanding the environment and communicating the environment in a more interesting manner. So I had actually I joined Cognito as a copywriter. So I was doing copy, trying to understand how the communication industry thinks, so that you could bring it back to the sector. So it wasn't really, I think that was never a career that I would have pursued long term. But I decided that because I didn't want to take really, ideally people take a course in communications. So I obviously didn't have the luxury of taking a course because I moved out of home, and you needed your earnings, and you had moved from your home to a different city. So I was very blessed that I met a couple of friends who said that if you're really interested in writing and you want to understand communications, why don't you come and join us? And it was like a small team. So it was a great opportunity to work with a group of very creative people. They were really, really nice. And I think I learned a lot of stuff from them. I learned about, how print communication works, how the media communication works, and, how do you write good copy so that, it can be presentable. So I spent 2 years in advertising, basically learning how to write good copy and how to, kind of make things interesting so that I could bring it back to my core interest in life, which was environment, which is why the Center for Environment Education was where I spent almost 10 years. Because it primarily is an organization that looks at education and communication for the environment. And I think they were great years because I worked on huge number of projects, very interesting projects, from working with children. I coordinated India's first largest climate change education program. It's called the Paryavaran Mitra program, which is basically in almost 2 lakh schools in the country, which basically talks at initiating, issues of climate change to government schools, which is a big challenge, because and it's actually there in, the Center for Environment Education's Guwahati office. The Guwahati team actually even has done it in a lot of schools in Guwahati, where you've brought issues of climate change. So understanding climate change from a child's perspective, that was one of my best projects. In fact, it got ArcelorMittal, the sponsor, the best CSR award, and it's actually an international best practice as far as education is concerned, in education for sustainability is concerned. So, and then I of course worked in several other projects, like I spent 3 years in Tripura because for personal reasons we moved there for 3 years, and then I worked with the rural communities to prepare people's biodiversity registers, which was very interesting because you work at the village level, where you work with the villagers to help them document the biodiversity. So it's very interesting, and you really understand how ignorant you are, because they have the knowledge of every plant and every small species that exists. But our knowledge is so bookish. But when you look at it from the perspective of the rural community, for instance, or the communities, they have so much knowledge. So the connect between man and nature is so much. So yeah, there were different projects. So there was national projects like the Prarthana Borah program, and there was of course smaller local projects like the People's Biodiversity Register. So that's some of the kind of work that I did. And in between, I spent 5 years in the National Institute of Design, understanding about, again, design and sustainability, because, at that time, sustainable fashion, sustainability in product design was becoming very important. So I was in charge of the international programs, but my interest in being in an ID for so long was to actually interact with students and find projects which basically looked at design from a sustainability perspective. I don't know if I'm making sense.
This is amazing. I could just go on listening to you. And then, have you ever thought that you will need to chronicle this into a book? I think I should write your biography. You should give me a chance to write your biography, and I should actually pen down each and everything from start, from the time you were born. And I know everything about you when you were young, but I didn't know all this. And this is such interesting. It's so interesting, sincerely. I'm saying this, and all this time we never connected, and now I connect, and I'm glad I didn't connect, and now I know so much about you, and I'm so glad that I'm bringing to the people, whoever is listening and whoever's hearing you right now, that I've got a gem of a person, and I'm showing you off, and showing you off is so it's like really wonderful. I'm loving this whole moments that I'm showing you off, that I've got this wonderful friend who's done so many things. Anyway, but you have been in Clean Air Asia since 2016, and you have achieved a whole lot of things, and I would like to hear it from you, the kind of achievements. I would like you to show off today, because it's your show. It's Prarthana. So I want you to speak about it and the kind of things you've done. I want to know about it, and so do the viewers.
So I want to say something. Environment is not a very rewarding career. You don't see results. So you have to have very little that satisfies you. And I think this is something that I tell the younger generation all the time. It's not a career for people who are constantly looking for results, because it's a long-term thing. Today what is happening in terms of climate change is because of what we did 10 years back, or our generations before us have been doing it. So and what we are doing today is going to you'll see the impact in not immediately. That's why we don't really take climate change seriously, or air pollution seriously. For instance, the kind of lethal air that we breathe, and yet we've been screaming about wearing a mask, we've been screaming about cleaning up the air, but no one was bothered. And then come the pandemic and the fear of death, immediate death, and everyone's wearing a mask. So I think one of the things that the same with air pollution. I think I moved to air pollution basically because I didn't think we were discussing it enough. Like, I mean, everyone talks about clean water, everyone's talking now about climate change, because it's become like a topic of conversation more than more than something that you're really concerned about. And then of course you talk about protecting the forests and things like that. But air pollution, I think, is one of the most under discussed or underrated issues. I mean, look at a city like Guwahati. I mean, it's not clean air. I mean, it has an AQI index which is often poor or unhealthy. But how many people talk about it, or how many people even ask a question that is it something that it bothers us? So I think the reason why I moved to Clean Air Asia was also because I wanted to bring air pollution into the mainstream. And I think, Tina, one of the best parts about the last couple of years has been that we've managed to take the air quality debate to a level where people are now talking about it. And we even have a national clean air program. The Prime Minister just spoke about it recently, in one of his speeches. So I think air has started, the dialogue on air has started. And it's not only in Delhi, but at least it started in, you have news articles. If you Google air now today, you'll find that, there'll be some stray article even about Guwahati or a city in the Northeast about not having clean air. So I think, I think one of my success stories probably would be that we've been very much Clean Air Asia, and I have been very much part of the movement to drive the discussion on air. The second is that I think we're now trying to get cities to work on air improvement. So we call it the Clean Air Action Plans, and this is a part of the government's National Clean Air Program. So something like one of the things that I'm a sector specialist within the Indian Smart Cities mission. So what we've managed to do is that now we're going to look at air quality as an indicator for the success story of smart cities, which is great, because I think till now when you talk about things like smart cities, you're always talking about whether you have great streets, great infrastructure, great buildings, but you don't really talk about these major issues like do we have good quality air to breathe, or do we have clean water? And these are actually more important things, right? So I think so as part of Clean Air Asia, one of the things that we've been really trying to do is bring the air quality debate into mainstream, so that more people are talking about it, and we are able to take action. The other thing we're trying to do is that if you look at countries like Japan, for instance, say a city like Tokyo, the moment you have an air quality index which is below 50 is supposed to be considered, it's very good air quality, what you call, right? So if it just goes above 50 in cities in Japan, people are asked to take a lot of precautions, like that you have to start wearing a mask, or you have to stay indoors, that kind of thing. Now it's interesting because in cities like Delhi, an average AQI would be between 150 to 200, and we're still going out, we're sending our kids out to play, and we are feeling very happy that they're doing they're playing outdoors, but we don't think about it. So what we're also trying to do is try to bring some of these international experiences, international methodologies that look at, how they've been addressing clean air. So we have the experience of at least, and the good part is that, we're an Asian organization. So it's not like comparing an Amsterdam with a Guwahati. It's more like comparing, an Asian city, a Korean city, South Korean city with a city in India. And so you have similar issues, development issues. So you're not telling everybody not to drive cars immediately because everybody wants to drive. We are aspirational cities. So the advantage with being with an organization like this is that we're predominantly an Asian organization. So we look at success stories from Asia which you can relate to. So we did a survey, for instance, in 465 Asian cities. And you won't believe it. These is Asian cities I'm talking about. 99% didn't meet the safe air quality standards. So it's not only India, but air is an Asian issue. Because why is it an Asian issue? It's because all these cities are developing. We are all growing, and so what are the issues related to it? It's one is that we have huge energy needs. And when you have huge energy needs, what do you go to? You go to coal, right? It's cheap power, right? So that kind of is connected. So can we look at clean energy as an option, and can we look at it in the beginning, like when we were developing? So that's one. The second is traffic. I mean, we, massive cars all the time. Everybody, whether you go to say Jakarta, or you go to Hanoi, or all these cities are booming. You have two-wheelers and you have diesel cars, and it's a developing problem, right? Because you don't have and the third is this rapid urban development. Now, if you just walk around a city like Guwahati, I mean, when we were growing up, there was so much greens. Today, there are these big buildings, there's construction happening, there's flyovers. If you remember, in a place like Shillong, we used to always walk. And today, the walking streets are gone. Because why? Because we just went into a concept where we thought development means building big roads, building flyovers. But that's not the case. Is it the right kind of development? So all these issues, we're trying to bring in all these issues and connect it with the whole context of air quality, because air quality ultimately is impacted by solutions which are outside the air. I mean, you just can't take a broom and clean the air, right? You'll have to look at all these issues. So basically, that's what Cleaner Asia is doing, and I lead the country program. So developing the country strategy is very much part of the my job. So it's not about just taking something that's happening in another country and bringing it here, but adapting it and seeing what meets the interests of this country.
So what do you think, Prarthana? Guwahati also seems to be very high in pollution. I can understand that, and the air quality is not good at all. Because most of the time, sometimes I don't do it often, but then some of my friends send me small things. They send me these little AQI, whatever you've said, that level is terrible. So. I say I can't do anything about it. I know one person who's really working on it, but then I need to talk to her then. But then, what can we do as individuals, as students? Because my son is very, very particular about it, because when he sees that his neighbor, our neighbor here, who is burning trash, he says that why can't they just dig a pit and put the garbage in there instead of burning it? Why do they need to burn it and create some pollution? So there is just one boy I know, that's my son, who's doing that. Maybe other kids will also have to start thinking like him. So maybe, do you think that the change can come then?
Well, firstly, I think I would really want to have your son as a brand ambassador for Cleaner Asia. I think he already knows what's to be done, and I keep telling I keep telling in forums like this that I think the young people today are much more conscious than we were at that age. So I think. I think nothing is going to change. We have some of the best policies. People talk about the government not doing anything, but actually, if you look at it, the Air Act of 1981, and plus we have, so many rules which actually contribute, which actually, if enforced and if people follow, we would be as good as any other nation, right? But so what it is my belief that, no policy can succeed if there's no public engagement. Like if you want to break a rule, you will break a rule. I mean, we tried that with odd and even in Delhi, right? Where
Yes.
so or I mean, the whole issue, you keep talking about, people, you shouldn't use private cars, or you shouldn't, you should use public transport. But I think that's a personal choice. And if you don't make that personal choice, nobody's going to push you to it. So I think individual action, what you're talking about, lifestyle changes, is very important. And it's possible to do it at your own level. Small things that you do, the choices you make. I mean, the kind of car you buy, or, you have a choice not to drive if you cannot drive. I mean, obviously, if you have to, if in the absence of public transport in most Indian cities, it's very difficult to say, oh, you should use public transport. But if there's no bus, then obviously you can't. I mean, or the safety issue is also there. But I think there are certain choices that we can always definitely, like for instance, one of the biggest causes of sources of air pollution in Indian cities is waste burning, what you just mentioned.
Yes. Yes.
And it just requires, disposing your waste properly. And the whole, so that's what I mean, that the solution for air pollution is actually in sustainable waste management. It's all interconnected. And how does one bring in that practice? I mean, the whole issue of segregation, I think, the fact that you're not supposed to, put everything together and just dump it, because, it actually, you end up, messing up even the good garbage, what you call the
Yes.
good garbage, which Taras just said that, can be composted. Digging a pit and putting it's composting. I mean, it's actually the best way to get rid of your waste, or, dispose your waste. So we are doing this very interesting project that I want to talk about, which is basically, engagement, public engagement, where we are trying, we are monitoring the particulate matter, which is supposed to be considered the lethal one, which, once you breathe it in, it doesn't come out. It's very tiny. So I'm telling you in very layman's terms, like the PM10 and the PM2.5 is actually particulate matter, which is so small that, it's smaller than the diameter of a hair strand. So what happens is when you breathe it in, it goes into your lungs, and then when you breathe out, it doesn't come out because it's so tiny. And that's what, clogs your lungs, and it leads to a lot of things. Today it says it even leads to, brain issues and Alzheimer's, and to some extent reduces IQ and things like that. Now, particulate matter, so what we are doing is that, we are measuring PM10 and PM2.5 in playgrounds of schools in the country, in about, about 5 cities. And the reason is that, we feel very proud that our kids are going out to play, right? And we don't even check the air quality. I mean, it's interesting that in winter, you don't send your child out because you feel cold. He might be cold, and, he might catch a cold. But we send our children out to play at any time, and we don't even check that it's lethal. So the idea is that in school playgrounds, we're measuring the PM10, PM2.5 levels, and to create an engagement among parents and, children and teachers, so that the school can get involved in understanding, and playing a role in terms of protecting the child health. And it's very interesting. In a city like Delhi, the PM levels are highest in the morning, early mornings, around 8 o'clock, because it's colder at that time, and several reasons. I mean, there's a lot of traffic at that time. And that's the time when, if you recall, that's the time when the kids are usually sent out to do their PT exercises, the younger ones, and all the solution, the small solution that any school can implement is actually, changing the play hours, so that, if you're checking your air quality, that, okay, it's better at this time of the day, so why don't we move the play hours to this particular time, and then, at least it's safer for the kids. Or you keep them indoors on days when the AQI is really, really, bad. So that's the kind of thing that we are trying to do, which involves engagement, so that parents are also conscious. They start thinking about these issues, they look at alternatives, and they also create a movement. So in, say for instance, in a particular city, there's a playground here, and there's this huge traffic parking place. Now, the simple solution is to not have that parking, right, where the cars are idling, because it is actually, it's making the air quality around that area worse. So the simple solution would be to move the parking someplace else. So we look at solutions like that, and how can you engage communities? How can you engage people? Of course, we also work in policy. I mean, we do drive policy, but I think public engagement, answering your question on, what are some of the solutions? I think this public engagement, and most of all, I think asking for clean air. I don't think we do
Yes.
that enough. I think that's very
We still
important.
not, we
Yeah,
still
because
not ask for clean air.
yeah,
Because we
we
don't know. We don't
yeah.
know about it at
Yeah,
all.
so it's never been I mean, I think water debate started earlier. You can see water. I mean, you can see dirty water. So, water, of course, is in a different level altogether. But I think when it comes to air, I think we just take it for granted because it's not immediately it doesn't impact you. And the other reason is that it can, till now, the medical the health impact, what you call health impact assessments, this country doesn't have enough. So the correlation between whether it's the air you're breathing or is it cold or is it something else, is not discussed enough. So these are some of the reasons, and we're basically trying to increase that debate and see how we can look at solutions from, for better air quality for everybody.
No, in fact, when you were talking about Tyrus, I just need to mention something else. That he's very particular about plastic use of plastic. And he makes sure that I carry my bazaar ka bag. To the market, I carry the bag, and I don't bring home plastic. So I'm very scared. I'm very very scared to bring home any kind of plastic. So this time I made a video for my YouTube. Every Sunday I make a video for young people, and I said that just stop using plastic, at least for then there were many people who said that how can we stop using plastic bags. I said stop using, at least one person stops using the plastic bags, there'll be other people who will follow you. So these are the kind of things that we need to do, like you were saying. This public those intervention is very very important. I think till the time we are not aware about it, like see, when we stand the car in the traffic, it is important that we switch it off. But how many of us switch it off? We just keep it standing there while the pollutants are polluting the air.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so we do not stop the car. Every time I remember, when I was being taught driving by my husband used to always say, at a traffic point, switch off your car, because that will save some fuel. Because we always tend to think that fossil fuel is forever, but it's
Yeah.
not. We tend to think it's like that. It's not.
Hmm.
But then, it's so interesting talking to you. You have been doing so. For all those people who have joined in late, let me tell you that Prarthana is the India Director for Clean Air Asia. And I'd like to read out her profile. Her profile is so interesting. She's based in New Delhi, and she leads the implementation of the India Strategy of Clean Air Asia. She has been working with the City Municipal Corporation to assess air quality management status of over 30 Indian cities, as well as preparation, implementation of air action plans. She's also a sector expert with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs of Government of India for tracking air quality indicators of smart cities. Under the National Clean Air Program, she leads Clean Air Asia's capacity development program for its technical partner, that's how do you say this? GIZ?
Yeah, GIZ. Yeah, GIZ. It's a
Okay.
German technical corporation.
Okay. She is also the mentor to several innovation startup programs and has been involved with conceptualizing and leading the preparation of a technology policy brief for pollution abatement. Prarthana is also involved in public and youth engagement programs, including the Youth Clean Air Network that trains youth to contribute to better air quality. She has already said how involved she has been since she had started her career with children and the young people. She has been involved in assessing AQ in play areas to engage communities in understanding the need for clean air for healthy play spaces, and developed the Train for Clean Air kits to a module on teaching about air pollution to middle school children. An environmental sustainability strategist with more than 20 years of experience. Now, mind it, she's 20 years of experience. I'm yet to start my life. Goodness. So prior to joining Clean Air Asia, she has been involved with policy support initiatives like preparation of Government of India's policy documents, for the UNFCCC Climate COP21 in Paris. Oh yes, we have to talk about this. The UN Biodiversity COP to CBD in 2012, and for the negotiation of the SDGs by Government of India at United Nations in 2015. Now this, my dear friends, my people who are watching, this is very, very interesting. Like Prarthana had said in the beginning, she has been to Loreto, she's good in English, and like all of us, we all have, an inkling of writing, but she is an exceptional writer since the beginning, since the class time she was, I think she was born with, with all those, the cells, those neurons inside her head. So with very intelligent neurons.
So I wanted to tell you a funny story. I don't know if you remember this. I mean, this is slightly off because we are discussing about writing. So I don't know if you remember in the 10th standard, we had to write, we used to write essays, and we had a very brilliant Irish nun who was our English teacher, Sister Margaret. And one of the essays that, one of the topics of the essays was the power of seeing in the dark. And I had written an essay. I don't remember this. So I had written it, and Sister Margaret asked me, after reading my essay, she made me read it out to the class. And once I had finished, she asked me if I really had the power.
I hope you remember Sister Rita and how we were asked to go for elocution class.
Especially you and I used to do that often. Practice in the small dingy rooms, the piano rooms, and literally be taught how to speak.
And we used to do that. What, where, when, all those things. Yes, of course I do remember. And all the people watching, Prarthana was exceptional in her elocution, in her writing, in her studies, in her games, in everything. So that is why she is the Indian director of Clean Air Asia, and I'm so, so proud of her. But I want to tell all of you something that, her writing has, she has been writing consistently, and in her career as well, she's been writing a whole lot of stuff. Reading of the stuff, you'll probably, I think, kal subah ho jayenge. So let me ask Prarthana a very specific question. She has written, she's the lead editor, mind you, she's the lead writer for Parampara. This is something that I want to hear it from her. And this is, all of you must listen to it very carefully. This is a wonderful surprise for all of you.
Well, actually, I mean, I joke about it that, after I finished this project and it was a document that we prepared, it was the Government of India's policy stand at the United Nations Climate COP. So when we write something, it actually, it is something that you write for the government. So you don't really, it's not really your book, but it's your country's book, and it presents a perspective of the country in terms of where you stand. So I think when the Prime Minister released it at the COP21 in 2015. I told everybody, I think I'll retire now, because this is as far as you can go as far as as far as environment is concerned, because you managed to write something which is an original document which the government has accepted as its commitment to climate change. So I'm particularly fond of this book because it's a very Indian book. It's, as you see, the name itself says it's Parampara, so it's about Indian culture. So it's about, basically, again, it's about lifestyle choices that you can make. And like, for instance, there's this very interesting story that my boss used to tell, based on which this whole idea came up. And my boss, ex-boss actually, Mr. Karthikeya Sarabhai, who I worked with for many years, I think, and he's a visionary and a Padma Shri in environment, and I'm very lucky to have actually worked with him. And he used to say that in some American discussion, somebody asked him how much of India uses solar energy, and he said 90%, and everybody started laughing. And they said, "Are you crazy? How can the 90% people of India use solar energy?" And Mr. Sarabhai says, "Okay, just drive through any Indian town and just look at how many people dry their clothes in the sun. Imagine if people started using an electrical dryer. I mean, imagine the power kind of uses that would happen. So it's funny, but if you really think about Yeah, but
Yes.
if you really think about it, I mean, the issue of direct use of solar, I mean, whenever you say solar energy, you keep thinking about technology. You keep thinking about solar panels, but you don't think about the direct use of solar, which, if you actually convert it from an energy perspective, is huge. Like, it's because that means people would shift to automatic dryers, people would shift to using, energy efficient dryers. So the book actually is a big book. I mean, it's a very beautiful
Ooh.
book, and it's
Please show us
yeah.
properly. I want to see. I want to
So
get a proper picture
so
of
it's a very beautiful book, and it opens up
it.
like this. So it has, like, it has photographs, and it has examples of things, of
Lovely.
different sectors, and it talks about these examples. So you have a chapter on, I want to talk about a few examples from the Northeast which you'd find very interesting. So there's a chapter on shelter, and I never knew this when I was living in Northeast, right? But there's a chapter on shelter, and there's a certain community in Arunachal Pradesh which builds, where the houses are built on stilts,
Yes.
basically because because it floods, right? But
Mhm.
and you want to protect yourself, so you have a top granary where you put all your stuff. And if and they always have a boat which is stored on the lower ground. So if the height of the water reaches a particular level, then the family can at least go away. They can store the grains in the highest level, and they can go away, and then they can come back. So this is called today in technical terminology, or in modern environmental technology, is called climate resilient architecture. But it's actually something that our traditional communities have always been following. So if you look at when the tsunami happened, it was the traditional tribes of Andamans that survived the tsunami. All the other things got washed away. Why? Because they knew where not to build the homes. And again, because they were close to nature, and it was resilient. So similarly, there are other examples. For instance, an interesting example is how Indian food doesn't have the concept of waste. So if you look at the whole issue of paneer, that's actually my paneer is actually spoilt milk. It's actually a product that was devised because the whole concept in Assamese you say sana, you say sana, but sana is actually, you just, when the milk gets spoiled, you take out you throw the water and you make something out of it. So if you look at it, actually the Indian food, there's a lot of recipes that are there, like poita bhat, is actually basically leftover rice which you leave and it gets fermented and you have it. So there was no concept of throwing away, which is one of the huge issues of food waste, and waste. All these contribute to climate change, but we don't really look at all these, our practices or our lifestyles, which actually gave, were so sustainable that many of these, if we had continued to live with it, I don't think we would have, had many of these issues. So I'm not saying we need to go back, but I think it's important to understand some of these, traditional practices, uh, lifestyle issues, which had a lot of scientific understanding in it. So the book actually talks about these kind of, examples, and how Indian traditions have taken into consideration sustainability, whether it is in, our textiles, local clothes. Like if you look at the sari, the sari is an unstitched product, and sari is a garment that you can hand over 3 generations down the line. It'll never go out of fashion or out of size. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective. But your other clothes, it's very difficult from a size issue, from a fashion issue. As a handover, it's very difficult. So you have to ultimately, at some point of time, throw it away. So basically, the book talks about, examples like this in terms of sustainability, and it was a very, very exciting experience to document it. I wouldn't say I wrote it, because I think most of the examples were through conversations with people from different states and cities. So I think it was very interesting to actually document it. And I think one of, like, people ask me what is something that you would really like to do, and I say that I would like to do a parampara for every state, because I think every state would have such a lot of environmental friendly practices. I mean, if you go down to, communities, and the Northeast must be a tremendous treasure. So I think, Tina, if you're ever up for it, we should write a book on, the
I am
parampara
there.
of the,
I am there.
of any of the states, and, look at a sustainability rather than write a book on me. Why don't we do a documentation
No,
of this?
writing a
And
book on you is there. Writing the book on you should be there, because we should document the life of such a fine woman. This is from my end, so I definitely need to document that. But yes, that other part, the story, the other thing, the parampara that you're talking about, we need to do that. Yes, and I'm in for that. I'm game.
yeah.
So what's your plan? Are you going to write some more? Like, what's your next plan? Because you seem to be always, up to something or the other. You're planning this and you're planning that. So what's your next plan? So for the environment, for yourself, for some book, and yeah, please tell us.
Uh, I don't know where the way forward is. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the work that I'm doing. Obviously, I don't want to move sectors. I mean, I would definitely continue to work in the field of environment, but I think it would be interesting to, at some point of time, actually, look at something which is it's I mean, I like working with people. So I mean, right now I'm doing a lot of policy work, and my work is mostly in terms of supporting policy. So I work a lot with supporting governments in their, in policy briefs, and facilitating, government action plans. But my heart is actually with young people and children. So I would definitely, at some point of time, like to, do something which is more towards, like, it's like going back, it's like full circle, because I started my career with, conservation education.
Yes.
And one of the things that, Tina, really disturbs me today is that you know uh, we don't spend enough time in nature. Like, I mean, you and we grew up, like, the forest was like just a natural thing, right? You and I spend a lot of time. And I'm a huge fan of somebody called Richard Liu, who's written a lot of books, and he's actually coined this particular terminology, which is called nature deficit disorder, which is basically, because children and young people are today so much engaged with, digital technology and all, there's a disconnect from nature. And which is why, in some ways, you feel all these issues that you hear about, mental illness and stress, and kind of, physical issues of, obesity, or, lethargy, is also, in some ways, I feel, is because we don't spend enough time in the outdoors. I would actually love to do something which would, bring back young people to the outdoors. And I really
Wow.
feel so sad when, you go to a place like Kaziranga, and you don't really have, a trail or something where you can take, young people just to observe. I mean, the whole idea of going to a wildlife resort is to see a lion or a tiger or a rhino. It's never about all the small stuff. I mean, we used to get excited with anthills. I remember when, we were so excited about the butterfly, or, I mean, I think we were.
Remember those little ladybirds? We used to have them
Exactly.
in school.
We used to have them here.
We used
I
to put
mean,
them here.
I don't think kids today know what a ladybird is,
No, they
Forget a
don't.
lady. I mean, of course, many things have gone extinct today. You don't see butterflies, you don't see sparrows. And I think, and the lockdown, I think, actually, one way it was very good. People suddenly noticed, and there were these pictures of nature and blue skies and everything floating around, Suddenly everybody woke up, oh, there's a bird, chirping outside my window. But, if you look at it, I mean, we actually, were so connected, which is why
Yes.
probably, the outdoors, just playing outdoors, the kind of, we used to observe the plants. We knew, what was a fern vis-a-vis what was something else,
Yes.
but I don't think today that the connect is there. Everything is, artificial, and you can book online to have your flowers delivered, and you just choose a tulip without even knowing it's a tulip, or is it a local species? I mean, and we used to pick up those red flowers. Don't you remember when we
Yes.
used to walk
Yes.
and the bluebells, So
Bluebells. You remember we
yeah,
used to put them in our fingers, and we used to
yeah.
scare the younger. We used to be bullies, no, you and me, and we used to scare the younger. We used to scare the younger girls. At least I was a bully. You were not. You were always a nice girl.
So I would like to actually basically bring back the Nature Connect if I can. I mean, if at some point of time, which would mean maybe, actually working on the ground with young people and, bringing, because today, because everything is curated, even if you go on a nature trip, somebody organizes it for you. So you have
Yes.
like 2 days here, 3 days there, and 4 days here, and you're just running, from one place to another, and you have air conditioned tents, and you have, grass, and then you end with a jam session in some city. So I mean, I don't know if that is really, what builds the Nature Connect. I think the Nature Connect is about life, right? And I think it's still there in the Northeast to some extent, but if you come to cities like Delhi, I think you hardly have any connect. So I think that is something probably I would think of doing. I mean, maybe, I don't know, that's one of the things. Probably, let's see what else comes. Maybe I'll write a book with you.
That would be the best project. I'm looking forward to it. 2021, we must write a book together
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
environment. On environment
Absolutely.
and whatever you wish, if I could help you from the Northeast, that'd
Yeah,
be great. But
absolutely.
yeah, you talking about books, you were an avid reader. So are you still reading any books at all now? Do you have time? Apart from such a busy job that
Well,
you have?
I read a lot of subject books. I must confess that I don't read, the kind of diversity that I used to read earlier. I think one of the things is that my profession is such that I have to constantly read. So you're reading throughout the day in terms of even the subject matter. So I think I have to confess that I don't read as much of, fiction or other things that I used to read early as a young girl. But I don't say I don't read, because I think I do read more than I look at audiovisuals or, or films or things like that on Netflix. Yeah, I do read, but it's mostly actually on my subject. I think it's more on environmental issues. So that's how it is at the moment.
And you love traveling. You've traveled almost all throughout the world. And which particular place do you think has kind of enamored you, made you want to stay back there? Maybe because of the environment, because of the people, because of the culture. What is that one place that you really really liked?
That's a difficult one. I love, I like
So
to
many places.
travel, whether it's India or abroad. I think it's I love to travel, not just because it's going to a new place, but it's also understanding cultures, and I like to spend a lot of time just looking around, not really traveling from one place to another, but just even if you're staying somewhere, just understanding the environment within it. Uh, I must say that there are certain things that sometimes being a part of being an Indian, sometimes you really, you you want to question yourself, because if you look at if you look at cities, Asian cities, like, I mean, I love Japan. I think Japan is one of my favorite countries, and I think. It's amazing the way your life is so convenient, and I keep telling everybody a small example why I like Japan, and it's a very trivial example. See, I always tell people, that you know it's the one country, I mean, whether I land in whichever part of Japan, it's the one country where I don't have to worry about getting from one place to another, which is amazing, because the moment you're traveling abroad, you're worried, like, oh, how am I going to get from here, am I going to get down here, how will I get from one place to another, and how am I going to manage, and things like that. But the life, I mean, the moment you land in Japan, what is amazing is that you do not have to worry. You don't know the language, and it's not and everything is written in Japanese, yet through signs you manage to go from one place to another, and you manage to go really cheap, because they've made private transportation and taxi and so expensive that you are bound to take public transport. But it is so easy to get into a bus. The bus has Wi-Fi connectivity, any bus, and so you don't even feel unsafe, because you're connected with whoever you are on the other side of the world, and it will drop you to a doorstep, And if you're not dropped at the doorstep, it will drop you to a place where you can just walk to the doorstep. So it's so convenient. From even a small example like getting from one place to another, I think that's one of the things that you look at, especially also again, because you're a sustainability, you're working in the field of sustainability, these things really matter to you. The convenience, I mean, you don't really have to, I mean, it's so easy. You don't even, I mean, I don't even plan when I'm going to, say Tokyo, because I go very frequently because we work very closely. I don't even plan, I'm so just like, it's so natural. On the contrary, when I'm returning, if I'm landing at a slightly later in Delhi, I'm worried like, oh, who's going to pick me up and how am I going to get home? And so I think after a point of time in life, it's conveniences that are very important. And if you look at it from that perspective, I think one of the countries that I really really think very highly of is Japan, and how they've dealt with in terms of even the way the Japanese deal with time management and how they manage their time, and yet they manage to kind of get the work done within a particular period of time. And of course, I love food. I mean, I'm a foodie, so I like Asian food very much. So I mean, so I like, say, I like cities, I like countries like Vietnam and Thailand and Japan, because I like the food. So yeah, so I think so I'm particularly more fond of the East than the West. I mean, I don't have really a big craze of I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, obviously, everybody likes Europe, but if you ask me, also because I think from the work perspective, you also kind of gauge, because you want your country to be like that, right? So basically, you also want to check how it is from that perspective. So I think that from that perspective, I would say that, yeah, if I had a choice, probably next life, maybe Japan.
Next life.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
that's
I just no, now I'm quite happy with the work I'm doing here. So right now I think I'm happy to kind of work here. So that's
Someone was asking me, what would you like, what I would like to be in my next life. I said I would definitely like to be a tree, and a tree which gives a lot of shade. And they said that, my goodness, I thought you were going to say I want to become a star or something. I said, no, I want to become a tree. I think that's the best thing that I can do for people, is to be a shade tree. And then maybe, I can grow into a big banyan tree or something like that. So
well, I think I would definitely like to be an environmentalist again, because I think they'll need more environmentalists then, because I mean, the world, like I tell everybody, I think, it's, I mean, it's a joke, but I think, disaster is going to be the next career of the century, whether it's climate disaster or natural disaster, or I mean, something, or the pandemic. You just see, it's tragic. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, I think it's really tragic, the way things are going. If we don't really take care of the world, our planet and our worlds, I think it's going to be very very it's really, you're not sure where it's going, because if you look at it these days, I mean, look at what COVID has done to us. I mean,
yes, yes,
completely
yes.
changed our lifestyles. So I think it's like a wake up call. So I think we need to really start thinking in terms of
But are we waking up at all, Prarthana? Because, I'll tell you why. Because even after the COVID thing happened, people here, look at what has happened to Guwahati. We are 356 in the list of the dirtiest cities in the country. We are 356th. So you can imagine what we have done to a city. We have become a city of garbage, where people throw things. Children throw, chips packets out of their cars, and I follow them and I tell them that, is this what your teachers and your parents have taught you? This is how you dirty the roads. So I think, just one person like me or you doing it, it's not going to change. I'm being very cynical right now, but we need more environmentalists and more people who are going to think that the earth is not just for the taking. The earth is also for us. It is our responsibility. We need to give something back to it. I mean, people are just taking from it. We are not giving anything back in return. Don't you think so?
well I think I'm going to disagree with you on that, because I think you need to then do a show with with maybe Terrace and his friends, because I think that generation will tell you, will give you a lot of positivism, because they're very much conscious. And I have two kids, and I think they're very, very conscious in terms of how they're going to deal. I mean, they use public transport, which is amazing, because I've been trying to tell them to kind of
I'm not talking about the young people. I'm talking about people like me and my generation or someone older to me. I'm not talking about the kids. I
well, I
have
think,
deep faith. I have deep faith in the young people.
yeah.
We, I have deep faith in them.
So I think for our generation, we've taken a lot of things for granted, and we grew up aspiring. So obviously, we wanted to those aspirations met, which is why we continue to kind of exploit, or still want to have bigger homes and bigger cars, and things like that, which was part of our aspirational um, times. But I don't know. I think because it's my career, I think I have to be positive. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job. I mean, I have to say that I'm going to make some change, and I'm going to be capable of doing it. Otherwise,
I totally agree with you on this. That
so
you are
no,
doing
no.
a
So I think
but
see, I think it's also internal. As like, for instance, I'm not saying it's the right way, but it took a pandemic to actually get to that level where we are, in terms of understanding a situation of a lockdown or wearing a mask. But obviously that's not the right way. But I think the if you look at the level of awareness, or the kind of people talking, say something like climate change was not discussed at all if you look at it from 10 years back. But today there is more people talking about it. There are more people thinking about it as a reality. The whole energy crisis, I think people are understanding that is ultimately going to impact you. I was talking to somebody yesterday that, the post-pandemic, because people are now worried about other forms of transport, many people are walking and cycling, which is something you never see in a city like Delhi. It used to be a cultural issue. I mean, I used to walk, I still continue to walk, and you know that very well, the lone walker I call myself. So I mean, I'm used to people staring at me, or a friend stopping the car and say, oh, can we drop you somewhere. But because they just couldn't get used to the fact that I was walking in a city like this. But it's interesting that post pandemic you see a lot of people cycling or walking, and so definitely I think at some point of time, I think lifestyles will change, and you will have to change, right? Because I mean, you'll have to adapt to how the world is changing. So I think let's be positive, and I mean, I mean, not end on a negative note.
no, not at all, not at all. I'm totally positive about this because at Decathlon, all the cycles are sold out. This time when Tyrus and I went, the cycles have been sold out. And only today, Tyrus was telling me that, Mom, you know what? I think I should start cycling because that way you don't have to go and drop me at my friend's place. I can go cycling to that place. So, I'm very positive that, the generation X, Z, whatever you call them, they are the ones who are going to take it up from where we actually lost out, and then they are going to take it up from there, and they are going to create a beautiful world. Because I have total faith in this young people. We are not going to end this show on a negative note, not me ever, because I've got such a wonderful person who's doing such amazing work on environment, on air pollution, and air safety and all that stuff. I would never end it on a negative note ever. Prarthana, you have given us such wonderful anecdotes, and I hope that when you have come in, I want you to. You started off on a very positive note by telling young people what to do about life, but I also want you to end with a message for them, for the young people, because coming from you, it will be a sort of an inspiration for them.
So I just want to say that, we have just one planet, and whether we like it or not, it's something that we have to take care of, because there is no other Earth. I think that should be enough for us to think about, how we manage our resources. Um, uh, I want to talk about the concept just before I end. I don't know how much time you have, but I want to talk about the concept of the ecological footprint, which is actually it's a concept. I mean, it's available online. It's basically that the world, the earth, has enough for everybody's need, as Mahatma Gandhi said, but not enough for everybody's greed. So basically, there is a certain, if we live frugally, or to the extent that is guaranteed by the world in terms of its carrying capacity, we would survive very well. The problem is we've overshot what is required for us in terms of the resources that we are consuming and in terms of the waste that we are generating. And that's where the problem is. Actually, it is not a problem. I mean, it's not that the earth doesn't have enough for us. It is that we are exceeding what is actually allocated for us. And which is why it's very important in our lives. I mean, how we live our lives is very important. And so I'm just saying that if you don't need something, don't buy it. If you don't, I mean, just do not get something. Or if you like, start with the food on your plate. If you're not going to consume the entire thing, please, do not take more than how much you require. So it goes for every aspect of your life. And if we continue to do or live our lives that way, I think we can all protect the earth. And if we protect the earth, I think we would survive. We must understand that the earth doesn't need us. We need the earth. So I think from that perspective, I think it's very, very important for us to understand that if the earth is not there, we are not there. And I think I would like to request to this forum that, that's a message that we all need to, consider. And that's how we need to live our lives, that, just think of it, that we need the earth.
Such a lovely message. Seriously, I was awestruck then back in school. I'm awestruck today also.
You're so sweet.
Prarthana, my guest on Conversations with Tina. It's been truly, truly a pleasure and an absolute privilege for me because you are on my show. And I hope the young people are listening to you. They are going to be listening, and I hope they listen with a heart because, like you said, we just have one earth. We need the earth. The earth doesn't need us. That's what you said. So we have to keep that in mind. And thank you so, so much for spending so much time. You spent over your precious time with me. I know you're such a busy person, but then thank you so much, Prarthana. Seriously.
It was very nice to talk to you. It was really nice. It was like being in school. And thank you so much for praising me so much.
No, you deserve more. I mean, I think I praised you less. I might have forgotten things, a little anecdotes from school and from college, but then, you deserve more. Actually, you deserve to be somewhere else. I see you somewhere else, actually. Maybe, hopefully, inshallah, I see you somewhere where I can, look up and I can just do this and I can be proud of my friend once again. And you're doing great work, Prarthana, and all the best. Congratulations to you for that book. By the way, before I leave, do we get this book anywhere? If anybody wants to get a hold of this copy, where can we get this?
No, I think it's online. Otherwise, it's Government of India property. But there's an online version, and that's available on the Parampara website. So it's called. No, I don't think it's for sale because as I said, it's a Government of India document. They hadn't put it up for sale, but you have an online version which you can get it on the website, which is www.paramparaproject.org.
Okay, guys, you should remember that paramparaproject.org. So we need to go to that and catch hold of Prarthana's the book that she's written. And Prarthana, thank you so much. Thank you. My deep gratitude for spending time with me. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.